You waited until our wedding day to tell me this. Are you trying to humiliate me? I can't believe this.
The rain hammered against the windows of the small apartment in downtown Portland, creating a rhythm that matched the pounding in Camila Torres's chest. She sat on the worn couch, watching her mother Rosa cough weakly from the bedroom. The medical bills were piled high on the kitchen table, a constant reminder of their drowning debt. We need to talk. Her father Fernando entered the room, his work boots leaving muddy prints on the old carpet. His face, usually warm and welcoming, looked 10 years older than his 55 years. "What is it, Papa?" Camila asked, though the heaviness in his voice already told her this wasn't good news. Fernando sat down heavily, rubbing his calloused hands together. "The Blackwood Corporation. They're calling in my debt. 40 years of owing them for the business loan that failed. They want everything." Camila felt her blood run cold. "But that's not fair. You've been paying them for years?" "Julian Blackwood doesn't care about fair, Mia," Fernando's voice cracked. "But he's made an offer. A way out for all of us." The billionaire's proposition 3 days later, Camila found herself in a glass tower overlooking the city, waiting in an office that probably cost more than her entire neighborhood. The door opened, and 2 men entered. Julian Blackwood was silver-haired and sharp-eyed, radiating the kind of power that came from decades of ruthless business. But it was the younger man beside him who made Camila's breath catch. Damian Blackwood stood well over 6 feet, with dark hair, piercing green eyes, and a jawline that could cut glass. He wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than her car, and his expression was colder than the marble floors beneath their feet. "Miss Torres," Julian began, his voice smooth as silk and twice as dangerous, "let me be direct. Your father owes me $300,000. I'm prepared to forgive the entire debt." "In exchange for what?" Camila asked, though she already suspected. "In exchange for you becoming my son's wife." The words hung in the air like a guillotine blade. Damian hadn't spoken yet, but his eyes were fixed on her with an intensity that made her skin prickle. "That's insane," Camila whispered. "This is the 21st century. You can't just arrange marriages like property transactions, can I?" Julian smiled without warmth. "Your father's debt becomes due in 30 days. Without payment, your family loses everything. Your mother's medical treatments stop. Your apartment goes into foreclosure. But with one simple ceremony, all of that disappears." "The Ice King speaks why." Camila turned to Damian, who had been silent throughout. "Why would you agree to this?" Damian finally spoke, his voice deep and controlled. "Because I'm tired of women who want me for my bank account and then pretend it's love. At least with you, we both know exactly what this is. A business transaction. You think I'm different because I'm poor?" Camila's temper flared. "That's incredibly condescending." For the first time, something flickered in Damian's eyes. Surprise, maybe, or respect. "You have fire? Good. I was worried you'd be a pushover." "I'm not interested in being anyone's convenient wife." Camila stood up. "Find someone else." "Wait." Damian's hand shot out, not touching her, but blocking her path. "Let me be clear about the terms. You live in my penthouse, in your own suite. You attend necessary social functions as my wife. In public, we're married. In private, you have complete freedom. Your family's debt is erased, and your mother gets the best medical care money can buy. And what do you get?" Camila challenged. "Freedom from gold diggers. Freedom from my father's matchmaking." And maybe his eyes met hers. "A wife who isn't pretending to love me for my money." The weight of decision. Camila spent 3 sleepless nights wrestling with the decision. Sophie, her best friend and fellow art teacher, thought she was crazy to even consider it. "Camila, this is like something from a twisted fairy tale," Sophie argued over coffee. "You can't sell yourself into marriage." "I'm not selling myself. I'm making a choice to save my family." But even as Camila said it, she wondered if she was trying to convince Sophie or herself. She visited her mother in the hospital that evening. Rosa was sleeping, her breathing shallow, the machines beeping steadily beside her bed. The newest treatment she needed wasn't covered by their insurance. It cost more than Camila made in a year. Fernando sat in the corner chair, his head in his hands. He looked defeated, broken. This proud man who had worked his entire life to provide for his family, now watching it crumble because of one failed business venture decades ago. "Papa," Camila whispered, not wanting to wake her mother. "I've made my decision." Fernando looked up, hope and despair warring in his eyes. "We'll do it. I'll marry Damien Blackwood." The contract signing the lawyer's office was all mahogany and leather. It's the kind of place where life-changing documents were signed every day. Camila sat across from Damien, a thick contract between them. "You should read it carefully," Damien said, his tone neutral. Camila flipped through the pages. It was all there, clinical and cold. Separate bedrooms. Public appearances. Duration of 5 years unless both parties agreed otherwise. Financial provisions. Dissolution clauses. "What about intimacy?" Camila asked, feeling her cheeks burn. Damien's expression didn't change. "That would only happen by mutual consent." "I'm not a monster, Camila." She picked up the pen, her hand trembling. "1 month from now, we get married?" "For weeks," Damien confirmed. "My father wants it done quickly, before anyone asks too many questions." As Camila signed her name, she felt like she was signing away her dreams of true love, of finding someone who would cherish her for who she was. But she was also buying her family's survival. "Welcome to the Blackwood family," Damien said without emotion. Signing his own name below hers, their eyes met across the table, and Camila saw something in his gaze that surprised her. Not coldness, but something deeper. Pain, maybe. Loneliness. For just a moment, she wondered if they weren't so different after all. Two people trapped by circumstances, neither of them fully controlled. The contract was sealed. The deal was done. In 4 weeks, she would walk down an aisle toward a man she barely knew. Entering a marriage built on debt and desperation rather than love. What Camila didn't know was that the biggest surprise was yet to come. Camila woke up in the luxury hotel suite with her stomach in knots. Today was her wedding day, though it felt more like a sentencing. Through the window, she could see the cathedral where the ceremony would take place, its spires reaching toward gray clouds that threatened rain. "You look like you're going to be sick," Sophie said, helping her into the wedding dress. It was beautiful, an elegant ivory gown that Julian Blackwood had insisted on purchasing. Nothing but the best for the Blackwood bride, he'd said, even if she was bought and paid for. "I am going to be sick," Camila admitted. "Sophie, what am I doing?" "You're saving your family," Sophie reminded her gently, zipping up the back. "But Camila, there's something I need to tell you. Something important." Before Sophie could continue, there was a knock at the door. Fernando entered, tears already glistening in his eyes. "Mia, you look like an angel." "Papa, I'm scared." Fernando took her hands. "I know, my daughter, I know. And I want you to know, if you want to run away right now, I'll support you. We'll find another way." But they both knew there was no other way. Rosa needed her treatment, which started tomorrow. The debt collectors had given their final notice. This marriage was the only lifeline they had. Walking toward faith, the cathedral was filled with people Camila had never met, business associates and society friends of the Blackwood family. On her side, the pews were nearly empty, just her parents, Sophie, and a handful of relatives who'd come more out of curiosity than support. The organ began playing the wedding march, and Camila took her father's arm. Each step down that aisle felt like walking through water, everything moving in slow motion. Damien stood at the altar in a black tuxedo, looking impossibly handsome and utterly remote. His face was a mask, revealing nothing. Beside him stood his best man, a business partner Camila had met only once, Father O'Brien. An elderly priest with kind eyes smiled at her as she reached the altar. Fernando kissed her cheek and placed her hand in Damien's. His touch was warm, but his eyes remained distant. "Dearly beloved Father," O'Brien began, "we are gathered here today to witness the union of Damien and Camila in holy matrimony." Camila barely heard the words. Her heart was pounding so hard she thought everyone must hear it. This was really happening. She was really marrying a stranger, The moment of truth, if anyone has any reason why these two should not be wed. Speak now or forever. Hold your peace. The silence stretched out, heavy with unspoken truths. Camila felt something breaking inside her. She couldn't do this. She couldn't stand here and lie in a church, before God, before her family. She couldn't pretend this was a normal marriage when it was anything but. The bride and groom have prepared their own vows, Father O'Brien announced. Damien, would you like to begin? Damien turned to face her fully, taking both her hands. His prepared speech was cold and formal, talking about partnership and mutual respect. Words that meant nothing and everything at once. Then it was Camila's turn. She opened her mouth to recite the vows she'd memorized, the safe words that would get her through this ceremony. But something else came out instead. I can't do this, she whispered. The church fell silent. Damien's eyes widened slightly, the first real emotion she'd seen from him all day. I can't stand here and pretend. Camila's voice grew stronger. I need to tell you something, Damien. Something I should have told you before, but I was afraid. Camila, Father O'Brien said gently. Perhaps this isn't the time. ... It is the time, she turned back to Damien, whose jaw had tightened. You think you know what kind of woman I am? You think I'm doing this for money? For security? And yes, that's part of it. But there's something you don't know about me. Damien's hands tightened on hers. What are you talking about? The confession that changed everything. Camila took a deep breath, feeling tears prick her eyes. I'm 26 years old, and I've never been with anyone. I'm a virgin, Damien. The words echoed through the cathedral like a thunderclap. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Sophie put her hand over her mouth. Julian Blackwood leaned forward in his pew, eyes narrowing, but it was Damien's reaction that shocked everyone. His face went completely white. His hands began to tremble, still holding hers. His eyes, which had been so cold and controlled, suddenly filled with something raw and overwhelming. What did you say? He whispered, his voice breaking. I'm telling you the truth, Camila continued, tears now streaming down her face. You said you wanted someone who wasn't pretending, who wasn't after your money. Well, here's the truth. I've never dated anyone seriously. I've spent my whole life taking care of my parents, working 2 jobs, trying to survive. I don't know how to be the sophisticated wife you need. I don't know how to navigate your world. And I'm scared, Damien. I'm terrified because I'm not doing this for money. I'm doing this because I'm desperate, and I'm sorry that I'm not what you thought I was. The breakdown something in Damien shattered. His carefully constructed walls crumbled in an instant. He released her hands and stepped back, pressing his palms against his temples. No, he said, his voice hoarse. No, Damien. Julian stood up, alarmed. Son, what's wrong? But Damien wasn't listening. He turned away from Camila, his shoulders shaking. The entire congregation watched in stunned silence as the notorious ice-cold billionaire had what could only be described as a breakdown in the middle of his own wedding. Can't. Damien's voice broke. I can't do this to you. He spun back around to face Camila, and she was shocked to see tears in his eyes. Do you understand what you just told me? Do you understand what that means? Camila shook her head, confused and frightened by his reaction. It means I'm the monster, Damien said, his voice raw. It means I was going to trap you in a loveless marriage, use you as a shield against my father's ambitions, and you, ... You're innocent. You're pure. You're everything Natasha wasn't. Who's Natasha? Camila asked. My ex-fiancée, Damien said bitterly. The woman who destroyed my ability to trust, who taught me that everyone has a price. But you. He reached out, cupping her face with shaking hands. You just proved me wrong, and I don't know what to do with that. Father O'Brien cleared his throat. Perhaps we should take a moment. No, Damien said firmly, his eyes never leaving Camila's. We're not taking a moment. We're ending this. Now. The shocking decision. What are you doing? Julian demanded, striding toward the altar. I'm stopping this wedding, Damien announced to the entire church. I will not marry this woman under false pretenses. Camila felt her heart drop. Her mother's treatment, her father's debt, everything was falling apart. But our deal, double quotes, Fernando said weakly from his pew. The deal still stands, surprising everyone. Your debt is forgiven. Your wife gets her treatment. But I can't marry your daughter. Not like this. You're making a mistake, Julian hissed. Damien turned to his father with a look of steel. For once in my life, I'm making the right choice. This woman deserves better than a contract. She deserves someone who will love her, cherish her, treat her the way she should be treated. He turned back to Camila, taking her hands one more time. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I was going to do this to you. Go home, Camila Torres. Find someone who deserves you, because I don't. And with that, Damien Blackwood walked down the aisle and out of the cathedral, leaving behind a stunned bride, a furious father, and a congregation that would be gossiping about this moment for years to come. Camila stood at the altar in her wedding dress, flowers still in her hands, unsure whether she'd just lost everything or been set free. The cathedral emptied slowly, guests whispering and staring as they passed. Camila remained frozen at the altar, her wedding bouquet drooping in her hands. Sophie rushed to her side, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. Camila, we need to get you out of here, Sophie urged gently, but Camila couldn't move. Her mind was racing, trying to process what had just happened. Damien had walked out. He'd ended their wedding. But he'd also promised to keep his word about her family's debt and her mother's treatment. I don't understand, Camila whispered. Why did he react that way? Julian Blackwood approached them, his face a mask of barely contained fury. That was quite a performance, Miss Torres. I hope you're satisfied with yourself. What are you talking about? Camila asked, finding her voice. I didn't plan any of this. Didn't you? Julian's eyes were cold. Tell my son you're a virgin at the altar. Make him feel guilty. Manipulate his emotions. Very clever. How dare you? Sophie stepped between them. Camila told the truth because she has integrity, something your family clearly knows nothing about. Before Julian could respond, Fernando hurried over. Please, Mr. Blackwood, my daughter didn't mean any harm. Is the agreement still? My son made his decision, Julian said icily. Though I don't understand it, he's a man of his word. Your debt is forgiven, and your wife's treatments will be covered. Consider yourselves lucky. He strode away, leaving them in the empty church. The unexpected visitor 2 days later, Camila was back in her small apartment, trying to return to normal life. Her mother, Rosa, was already starting her new treatment protocol, and the relief on her parents' faces was worth everything Camila had been through. But Camila herself felt hollow. She kept replaying the wedding, Damien's face, the raw emotion in his eyes when she'd made her confession. What had caused such a powerful reaction? A knock at the door startled her from her thoughts. When she opened it, she found a woman in her early 30s, impeccably dressed in a designer suit, with auburn hair and sharp blue eyes. Are you Camila Torres? The woman asked. Yes. Who are you? My name is Natasha Sterling. I think we need to talk about Damien Blackwood. Camila's heart skipped a beat. The ex-fiancé. She stepped aside to let Natasha in. I heard about what happened at the wedding, Natasha said, settling onto the worn couch without being invited. The whole city is talking about it. The billionaire who ran from his own ceremony? What do you want? Camila asked warily. Natasha's expression softened slightly. To warn you. And to apologize. The truth about Damien 3 years ago. Damien and I were engaged, Natasha began, staring at her perfectly manicured hands. I was everything you're not. Sophisticated, experienced, connected in all the right social circles. Damien fell hard for me. Or so I thought. Camila sat down across from her, listening intently. The truth is, I was using him, Natasha continued, her voice thick with regret. I was deep in debt from my own failed business ventures. I saw Damien as my ticket out. I played the role of the perfect fiancé, even slept with him to seal the deal. But I was also seeing other men, wealthy men, keeping my options open. That's horrible, Camila whispered. It gets worse. The night before our wedding, Damien found out. He discovered emails, photos, everything. He learned that our entire relationship had been a lie, that I'd been intimate with him as part of a calculated plan to secure his money. Natasha's eyes glistened with unshed tears. I destroyed him, Miss Torres. I took a man who was capable of deep love and turned him into someone who couldn't trust anyone. When he called off our wedding, he told me he would never let another woman make a fool of him, that if he ever married, it would be a business transaction with no emotions involved. Understanding crashed over Camila like a wave. That's why he agreed to the arranged marriage with me. Exactly, Natasha nodded. He wanted a wife who was with him for purely practical reasons. No pretense of love, no emotional manipulation. Just a clean transaction. But why are you telling me this? Camila asked. Natasha stood up, walking to the window. Because when you told him you were a virgin, you shattered his entire worldview. Don't you see? You proved that not every woman is like me. That innocence and honesty still exist. That he was wrong to close his heart completely. Damien's return at Tasha left shortly after, but her words stayed with Camila. She found herself thinking about Damien constantly. Not as the cold billionaire who had offered her a contract, but as a wounded man who'd been betrayed by someone he loved. A week after the failed wedding, another knock came at Camila's door. This time, when she opened it, Damien stood there. He looked different, more vulnerable somehow. His expensive suit was rumpled, his hair disheveled, dark circles under his eyes. Can I come in? He asked quietly. Camila nodded, stepping aside. They sat in her tiny living room, the space feeling even smaller with his presence. I owe you an explanation, Damien began. And an apology. You don't owe me anything, Camila said. You kept your word about my family. I owe you everything, Damien corrected her. Camila, when you told me the truth at the altar, it broke something in me. Or maybe it fixed something I didn't know was broken. He leaned forward, his green eyes intense. I've spent 3 years believing that every woman was like Natasha, that everyone had an angle, a price. I built walls so high that I couldn't see past them anymore. I understand why you did that, Camila said softly. But you, Damien continued, his voice thick with emotion, you stood in a church and told me the truth when you could have stayed silent. You risked everything, your mother's treatment, your father's debt relief, all of it, just to be honest with me. Do you know how rare that is? How incredible. Camila felt tears welling up. I couldn't lie in a church, Damien. I couldn't start a marriage, even a fake one, with a lie. The awakening heart Damien reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, he took her hand gently. I walked out of that church because I realized I couldn't trap you in a loveless marriage. You deserve so much more than that. You deserve someone who will love you the way you should be loved. And you, Camila asked, her heart pounding. What do you deserve? I don't know anymore, Damien admitted. A week ago, I would have said I deserved exactly what I was getting. A cold, practical arrangement with no risk of heartbreak. But now, ... double quotes now. Camila prompted, barely breathing. Now, I think maybe I deserve a second chance, Damien said. Not at a contract marriage, but at something real. He stood up, pulling her gently to her feet. They were standing close now. Close enough that Camila could see the flecks of gold in his green eyes. Camila Torres, would you let me take you to dinner? A real date, with no contracts, no arrangements, no debt hanging over us. Just two people getting to know each other. Camila's heart soared. What about your father? What about society's expectations? I don't care, Damien said firmly. I've spent too long living for everyone else's expectations. It's time I figured out what I actually want. And what do you want? Camila asked breathlessly. Damien cupped her face gently, his thumb brushing away a tear she hadn't realized had fallen. I want to earn your trust. I want to show you that I'm not just the cold billionaire who tried to buy a wife. I want to discover who we could be together if we started from scratch, honestly, openly. No contracts? Camila asked with a small smile. No contracts, Damien confirmed. Just to people seeing where this could go. New beginnings 3 months later, Camila stood in an art gallery, watching people admire her paintings. It was her first exhibition, funded not by Damien's money, but by her own hard work and a grant she'd earned. Damien had insisted she'd pursue her passion for art, supporting her emotionally, but letting her make her own way. He stood beside her now, holding her hand, looking at her with pride and something deeper. Something that looked a lot like love. "You were right," Camila said softly. "About what?" Damien asked. "About deserving second chances. About not letting the past define the future." Damien turned to face her fully. "You taught me that, Camila. You taught me that vulnerability isn't weakness. That honesty is worth more than any contract. That real love is so much better than safe arrangements." "Are you saying you love me, Mr. Blackwood?" Camila teased gently. "I'm saying I'm falling in love with you more every day," Damien said seriously. "And someday, when you're ready, I want to ask you a question. The right way this time. No contracts, no deals. Just a man asking a woman he loves to spend her life with him." Camila smiled, her heart full. "And what makes you think I'll say yes?" "Hope," Damien said simply. "You taught me how to hope again." As they stood together in the gallery, surrounded by Camila's art and the promise of a future built on truth rather than transactions, both of them knew they'd found something rare. A love that had started in the worst possible way, but had transformed into something beautiful and real. The billionaire who had lost his mind at a wedding altar had found his heart instead. And the girl who had confessed her innocence had gained not just security for her family, but a partner who valued her honesty above all else. Sometimes the best love stories don't begin with romance. Sometimes they begin with truth, courage, and the willingness to tear down walls and start again.